Morning fog clings low to the hedgerows, thick and damp, muffling sound. Dew beads on steel. Inside a Panther tank, Oberlieutenant Karl Heinz Becker presses his forehead briefly against the cool interior armor as the engine idles. The Maybach growls beneath him, confident, powerful. This machine has weight, authority. Through his periscope, Becker sees them. Shermans. Boxy, tall, thin-skinned. American tanks roll cautiously along the narrow Norman road, their olive-drab paint already smeared with mud. Becker snorts. You can almost hear the thought forming before he says it aloud. Blechbuchsen, he mutters. Tin cans. The Panther's 75mm KWK-42 gun is already aligned. His gunner barely needs to adjust. At this range, it's not a fight, it's a demonstration. The first round punches clean through a Sherman's frontal armor. The American tank erupts in flame, a bright orange bloom cutting through the fog. The second Sherman tries to reverse. Too late. Another shot, another kill. Inside the Panther, there's no cheering, just satisfaction, calm. This is exactly how it's supposed to be. German panzer crews had been saying it for months. The Sherman is inferior, undergunned, overmatched, a tank built by committee, rushed into service by an enemy that doesn't understand armored warfare. Against Panthers and Tigers, the Sherman dies fast. Against German crews trained in Poland, France, Russia, it doesn't stand a chance. Becker's radio crackles. Another panzer unit reports similar results along a parallel road. Shermans burning, Americans retreating. Confidence spreads quickly when it's earned. The Wehrmacht has been pushed back since D-Day, yes, bombed, outnumbered, pressed. But here, in the bocage, these tight fields and sunken roads, this is panzer country. Here, German steel still decides the fight. Or so it seems. By mid-morning, Becker's company has knocked out 7 Shermans. Smoke columns rise like black pillars above the green hedgerows. American infantry keeps its distance. The road belongs to the Germans again. The men dismount briefly, stretching legs, lighting cigarettes beside their tanks. Someone jokes that the Americans must be blind to send Shermans against Panthers head-on. Laughter ripples through the group. That's when the sound changes. At first, it's distant, easy to ignore, a low, growing hum that doesn't belong to artillery or engines. Becker tilts his head. It's coming from above. The laughter fades. The roar becomes a growing, layered, mechanical, relentless. Becker steps out of the Panther and looks up into the brightening sky. Tiny black dots. Then wings. Dozens of them. P-47 Thunderbolts. They're high, almost lazy, circling like birds of prey. Sunlight flashes off their canopies. Becker's stomach tightens. He's seen this before, briefly, in Italy. Others saw it in Russia when the Luftwaffe vanished, but never like this. The radio explodes with shouted warnings. Yabos! Yabos! Fighter bombers. The Panthers scramble back into motion, engines roaring, crews suddenly urgent, orders barked, hatches slammed shut. The road that felt so secure minutes ago now feels impossibly narrow, too narrow. The Thunderbolts dive. You can almost feel the air compress as the first one screams down. The sound is physical, a tearing, rising howl that ends in violence. Rockets streak earthward, white trails cutting the sky. A Panther at the rear takes a direct hit. Not through armor, from above. The explosion lifts the tank's rear deck like paper. Flames pour out of the engine compartment. The turret crew never has a chance. Becker watches through his periscope as another rocket slams into the road ahead, flipping a half-track onto its side. Shrapnel hammers his hull like rain. This isn't tank combat. This is execution. The Thunderbolts make pass after pass, methodical, coordinated, each dive precise, each pull-up clean. They don't linger. They don't need to. German anti-aircraft guns are scarce here. Fuel trucks have been destroyed days earlier. The Luftwaffe is nowhere. The Panthers scatter, trying to leave the road, pushing through hedgerows not designed for 45-ton machines. Tracks spin, engines strain. One tank bogs down in soft earth, helpless. A Thunderbolt peels off and lines up. Becker hears the pilot's guns before he sees the impact. 50 caliber rounds rake the immobilized Panther, stitching sparks across its armor. Then rockets, then fire. Inside his own tank, Becker grips the edge of his seat. This isn't bravery anymore, it's survival. The radio goes dead. One by one, voices vanish. When the thunderbolts finally climb away, the road is unrecognizable. Craters, burning wrecks, twisted steel. The morning's confidence is gone, replaced with smoke and the smell of scorched oil. Becker opens his hatch cautiously. The Shermans are gone, but so are half his Panthers. And for the first time, standing amid the wreckage, a thought pushes through the training, the doctrine, the pride. The Sherman was never the real enemy, and if the sky belongs to the Americans, what chance does steel on the ground really have?
Becker doesn't sleep that night. The Panther sits camouflaged beneath a canopy of torn branches, engine cold, crew silent. Somewhere in the darkness, ammunition cooks off in a burning wreck, popping like distant thunder. Each sound makes Becker's jaw tighten. By doctrine, by design, he should feel confident. The Panther is the finest medium tank on the battlefield, sloped armor, a long-barreled gun that kills at range. In pure tank versus tank combat, the Sherman doesn't belong in the same conversation. That belief has been drilled into every Panzer officer since the Eastern Front, but doctrine doesn't account for what happened today. At first light, Becker climbs out again, boots sinking into soft earth. The road looks worse in daylight. Charred hulls, blackened hedges, a Panther burned so fiercely its turret ring has warped. He walks past one wreck and pauses. There is no penetration hole on the front, no sign of enemy tank fire. The kill came from above. The Americans call it fighter-bomber interdiction. The Germans call it something else. They call it inevitability. A runner arrives mid-morning with orders to reposition. Not advance, not attack, reposition. The language itself has changed. Becker's unit is to move only at night now. Daylight movement is strongly discouraged. Fuel conservation is critical. Engines are not to be idled unnecessarily. Any road movement must be dispersed, concealed, and brief. The hedgerows that once felt protective now feel like cages. German armor doctrine was built on speed and shock, Bewegungskrieg, movement war. But Normandy is a maze of narrow lanes and sunken roads, every turn predictable from the air. Every Panther that moves leaves a signature: dust, heat, tracks. By noon, Becker hears them again, not close, not diving, just present. The hum of American aircraft circling high above, invisible behind cloud cover. They don't need to attack. Their presence alone freezes movement. Convoys halt, units wait, commanders argue over timing. The sky has become a weapon. That afternoon, Becker receives intelligence from Panzer Lehr Division. The report is blunt. Shermans are still inferior in direct engagements, but American armored units are advancing anyway, slowly, methodically, under constant air cover. German counterattacks stall before they begin. Assembly areas are struck before units can form. Becker reads the report twice. The implication is unavoidable. The Americans aren't trying to win with tanks. They're trying to deny movement. A Tiger battalion attempted to redeploy the previous day. It lost vehicles without firing a shot. A fuel column was hit 20 kilometers from the front. A repair unit vanished under rocket fire. Every solution creates another vulnerability. You can almost feel the trap tightening. That evening, Becker sits with his gunner, Feldwebel Otto Kraus, sharing a cigarette. Kraus has fought since 1941, Russia, Kharkov, Kursk. He's seen tanks burn before. "This isn't like the Russians," Kraus says quietly. "They came at us no matter the cost." Becker nods. The Soviets overwhelmed with numbers. The Americans overwhelmed with systems, air, artillery, logistics, radios, timing. The Sherman doesn't need to be better if something else always is. Night falls, and with it, movement. Engines start cautiously, one at a time. Panthers creep forward under blackout conditions, hugging hedgerows, crossing roads only after long pauses. Still, Becker feels exposed. At one crossing, the column halts. A distant explosion flares on the horizon. Someone whispers that another unit moved too early. Another unit paid for it. By dawn, Becker's company has advanced less than 3 kilometers. 3 kilometers for a force designed to cross continents. And then the order arrives. Hold. Do not counterattack. Await further instructions. Becker stares at the paper longer than necessary. Hold. It's a word he rarely heard before Normandy. In the afternoon, American artillery begins to range in, not heavy, not concentrated, just enough to remind them they're seen, that they're mapped, that someone, somewhere, knows exactly where they are. The Shermans appear again at dusk, probing the edges of the hedgerows. They don't charge, they don't challenge the Panthers head-on. They wait. Behind them, Becker knows the Americans are building something invisible but unstoppable. Roads cleared, depots filled, aircraft fueled. A war measured in minutes and meters is being replaced by a war measured in tons and hours. Becker thinks back to the laughter that morning, to the ease of the first kills, to the belief that armor thickness decided victory. Now he understands the mistake. Superiority in one weapon means nothing when the enemy controls the environment around it. And as night settles in once more, the distant hum returns, not attacking, watching, waiting. Because tomorrow, the sky won't just punish movement, it will erase it.
June 16th, 1944. Just after noon, south of Keene. The order comes down the line in clipped, careful language. A counterattack is required. Not a breakthrough, not a bold thrust, just a limited movement to delay the Americans pressing toward Keene. Panzer units are to redeploy along a secondary road network and strike an exposed flank. On paper, it makes sense. In reality, Becker feels a familiar tightening in his chest as he folds the map. The roads are narrow, predictable, bordered by hedgerows too dense for rapid maneuver. Every bend is a choke point, every intersection a potential marker from the sky. Still, orders are orders. Engines start. The column moves shortly after midday, a calculated risk. Cloud cover is thick. The Luftwaffe reports limited enemy activity. The men cling to that report like a talisman. For the first 15 minutes, nothing happens. No aircraft, no explosions, just the grinding of tracks and the occasional snap of branches as Panthers push through foliage. Then, the clouds thin. Becker hears it before he sees it, a distant, rising whine that slices clean through the engine noise. Someone shouts into the radio, "Aircraft, high!" The column halts instinctively, but it's too late. The thunderbolts are already dropping through the clouds, their silhouettes growing fast, impossibly fast. You can almost feel the panic ripple through the vehicles. There is no place to hide. The lead Panther accelerates, trying to clear the road. A rocket slams into the hedgerow beside it, detonating dirt and stone into the air. The second rocket hits the road itself, collapsing it into a crater that blocks everything behind. The column is trapped. Thunderbolts sweep in pairs now, one diving, one covering. They don't guess. They don't spray randomly. They know exactly where to aim. Becker watches a neighboring Panther take a hit on the rear deck. Flames erupt instantly, fed by fuel vapors and lubricants. The crew scrambles for the hatches, one man engulfed before he can clear the turret. There is no time to look away. Another aircraft screams in low, guns blazing. 50 caliber rounds punch through exposed trucks, shredding canvas and men alike. A fuel tanker explodes in a violent white flash, the shockwaves slamming Becker back into his seat. This road, this ordinary French road, has become a killing field.
The Panthers fire their machine guns uselessly skyward. Tracers arc and fall. There is no illusion left about control. The air belongs to the Americans. Within minutes, the column is no longer a unit. It's a series of burning points, each marking a decision that can't be undone. Becker slams the driver's shoulder. "Reverse! Off the road!" The Panther lurches backward, then sideways, crashing through a hedgerow into a farmer's field. The tank bogs briefly, then finds traction. Becker holds his breath as they push deeper, branches scraping the hull. Above them, thunderbolts circle again. They're not in a hurry. They know what's happening below. They know panic when they see it. A rocket detonates nearby, flipping a half-track into the air like a toy. Another Panther is abandoned, its engine dead, crew fleeing on foot across open ground. Becker's radio is chaos, shouted coordinates, screams, static. And then, silence. The attack never reaches the enemy. By the time the thunderbolts finally peel away, satisfied, the road is impassable. Craters block every route. Burning vehicles light the scene like torches. American artillery begins to fall shortly afterward, pre-registered, precise. The shells walk calmly through the wreckage, sealing the trap. Becker orders his crew to remain hidden, engines off, no movement. They sit in the hedgerow for hours, sweating in the dark, listening to distant engines and explosions. When night finally comes, Becker climbs out. The road is unrecognizable. What was once a route of advance is now a graveyard. He counts at least 9 destroyed vehicles within sight. Panthers, half-tracks, trucks. Machines that once symbolized power, reduced to twisted metal by something that never touched the ground. Becker realizes something then, something no amount of training prepared him for. This is not attrition. This is denial. The Americans don't need to destroy every tank. They just need to make movement impossible. Without movement, armor is irrelevant. Without movement, doctrine collapses. And without doctrine, experience means nothing. Becker looks up at the night sky, now empty, and understands that the danger isn't the aircraft themselves. It's the certainty that they'll be back. Tomorrow, and the next day, and every day after that. Because Normandy is no longer a battlefield. It's a system, and German armor is trapped inside it.
A single lantern burns low, its light barely touching the map spread across an ammunition crate. The paper is worn thin from fingers tracing the same routes again and again. None of them work. Oberleutnant Becker stands with 3 other officers, shoulders hunched, listening as a staff captain from Panzer Group West finishes his briefing. The man's voice is flat, exhausted. All daylight armored movement is suspended. Exceptions require divisional approval. No one argues. The words hang in the air, heavy and final. Suspended. Not limited, not adjusted. Suspended. This is the moment Becker understands the war has changed. The Sherman was never meant to defeat the Panther in a duel. It was meant to exist inside a machine the Germans can no longer disrupt. The briefing continues. American aircraft sortie rates are climbing, not falling. Fuel dumps are destroyed within hours of relocation. Repair parks are hit before damaged tanks can be recovered. Even forest concealment is no longer safe. Fighter bombers patrol likely assembly areas by pattern, not chance. The Americans have learned the map. Worse, they've learned the habits. Becker thinks back to France in 1940, to columns racing forward under clear skies, Stukas screaming down in support, to roads that meant opportunity, not death. Now the roles are reversed, and reversed completely. Later, outside the command post, Becker leans against his Panther, helmet under his arm. The metal is cool, solid, reassuring in a way it no longer deserves. A younger officer approaches, voice low. "Sir, do you think we can still stop them?"
Becker doesn't answer right away. You can almost hear the calculation in his silence. "In a fight?" he finally says. "Yes." The officer nods, relieved. Becker continues. "In a war?" He shakes his head. No air cover, no fuel freedom, no maneuver. The Panther's strengths are being strangled one by one. That night, Becker reads an intelligence summary captured from an American unit. It's not dramatic, no boasts, no slogans, just schedules. Air patrol rotations, forward air controller procedures, rapid response times measured in minutes, ground units trained to mark targets, call strikes, advance behind them. The Sherman appears only briefly in the document, as a component, not the centerpiece. The Americans don't think in terms of single weapons. They think in layers, overlapping systems, redundancy. If a Sherman is lost, another arrives. If a road is cratered, engineers repair it. If resistance stiffens, air power adjusts. Everything flows. Becker realizes that German Panzer doctrine, brilliant, bold, decisive, was built for a different kind of war. A war where control of the sky was assumed. A war where logistics followed victory. In Normandy, logistics are victory. Dawn comes quietly. No attack, no counterstroke, just waiting. By mid-morning, American artillery begins again. Not heavy, not destructive, persistent. A reminder. Becker's unit doesn't move all day. At dusk, Shermans probe the perimeter once more. This time, Becker doesn't feel contempt. He feels something else. Resignation. They're not afraid of his Panther. They don't need to be. They know what comes next. Above them, unseen, aircraft are already forming. Fuel trucks are already rolling. Replacement crews are already briefed. The Americans advance not with courage alone, but with certainty. Becker grips the edge of his hatch and exhales slowly. The sky hums faintly. And in that sound, he hears the end of an era, the moment when armor ceased to be king and became just another target, because the Sherman didn't win Normandy. The system did.